Hello, Elizabeth, and welcome, Ayomide, if you can both hear me. Welcome to this is week 5, technically. This is week 5 of the personal development cohort. Where we have our special guest in the house today, but we're just waiting a few minutes to let more people come in. There's just 2 people, so let's just give it's 2 minutes, all right. Just a few more minutes so we can get more people in the house, and then we start. So hopefully we're gonna have a really good session today. So just hold on. Ayomide is still connecting to audio. Okay. Ayomide. Elizabeth, you've got your hand up. Did you want to say something? Or was that okay? Maybe it was an accident. Okay. Just give it another minute and then we can start.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Ayomide. I saw you trying to log in for a few minutes. Your audio was taking a while. Welcome. Hello, Elijah and Elizabeth. Okay, so I think we are pretty much good to start. I want to welcome you all to this session. This is the week 5 of the personal development mentoring cohort of the Develop Your A Game, as you can see over here. Develop Your A Game. And I'm your host. I've been your host for the past 5 weeks, and my name is Beverley. You all know me already. And we've had some pretty amazing guest facilitators come on to teach us and share their knowledge and wisdom in different areas, which would help you all develop your A game. And today I'm really excited to have the amazing chief grammarian herself, as you can see, the grammar ministry. She's from the Ministry of Grammar and communicator, Tolagbe Martins. I'm gonna read out her bio just so you can get a sense of how awesome she is. But when they say when you're developing your A game, when you find yourself and when you know your purpose, you actually begin to connect the dots much earlier in your life. So let's just put it this way: Tolagbe Martins is someone that has been doing this for a very long time, in terms of impeccable grammar, impeccable communication, and now becoming a communication strategist, teaching people how to communicate for impact. This is something she's been doing pretty much for the longest time, and I've known her a very long time as well. So it's really a pleasure and an honor to have her here with us today. So I'm just going to read out her profile. So she is a connector. She calls herself a connector, and that's something that I believe I have in common with her as a fellow connectee. And
You're
she's
more of
got
a
two
connector.
decades of experience. Welcome, Twale. I Twale you. Welcome. So Tolagbe Martins, hi Twale. We're just introducing and welcoming our guest facilitator, Tolagbe Martins. She's got 2 decades of experience in lean business processes, spanning a diverse range of industries. It'll interest you to know that she was part of the original team, Caviton Helicopters. I don't know if any of you here ever saw that. It's next to the Civic Center. Did you ever notice the helipad, the helicopter station called Caviton? So she is one. She's an original member of the team that made that happen. So that was that was a pretty impressive thing that she did. And also, she founded the TM Grammar Ministry, which provides communication training to individuals. I mean, she's very modest. She didn't give me half of the things she's done. She was also part of the Lagos State Emergency Unit. She was part of the people that set that up as well. So she's done a lot. Communication is really critical when you're setting up business. It's critical when you're selling yourself. But I'm not going to talk much more. I'm going to leave her to it because she's the expert in these things. So I'm handing over to you, our chief communicator and grammarian, Tolagbe Martins. You're welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Amaka. Thank you for that very, very instructional introduction. I forget sometimes, that people who've known me a long time know that I've done a lot of things. And I think that's actually what's critical here, which is to say that when you've done a lot of things, you begin to see what the common threads are. And you begin to make the connections and draw the generals, what are the major takeaways. And I've been able to develop today's course is just today's discussion. I'm not even going to call it a course. It's just one of the things that or it covers some of the areas I've recognized that people have challenges with in their work lives. When you've been working for a long time, you tend to see what are the sort of the pain points that people have. People will say to me, "Oh, you write really well. Oh, and it's from a foundation. So what tends to happen is you recognize what do people have problems with, and what are the insights that you can share. So I will say this is designed to be quite interactive today. I do have some slides which we're going to look at. Amaka, do I have sharing privilege?
Yes, let me do that. Let me give you hosting rights.
Yeah.
Make host. Here we go. Change host to you. Okay.
Okay, fantastic. So yeah, we're gonna get started. I think everyone can see. Yeah, good. I would like you just to confirm that you can see my screen and that you're here. Otherwise it's a little tough, this virtual life, you can't see anybody and you don't know whether anyone's listening or anyone can see anything.
People
So
can put on their screens though.
okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for that. Okay. So as Amaka said, my name is Tolagbe Martins. I actually work in a number of diverse fields, and I specialize, my day job, if you like, is in public-private partnerships. And I consult with a number of organizations on just how to make the public sector and the private sector work together in a more effective and efficient way. And I do that through any number of methods. One in particular is stakeholder management and engagement. So with stakeholder management and engagement, you're working really on trying to make sure you understand your audience and you can communicate to them effectively. But for today, as part of your A game, I want to talk about professional writing. This is something that I find often poses to be a little bit of a challenge for people, just knowing what is appropriate, how to communicate, because in a lot of instances, your first interaction is going to be by email or a post you've written or an article that you've read. In this increasingly global world, in this increasingly digital world, you're often not going to get the chance to speak to people for the first time. It will be something that they've seen, a proposal that you've shared, and you can imagine how many proposals business people get. So this will be the critical issue of making sure that your proposal stands out enough that you will, get to the next stage. And I will also say that the objective of the grammar ministry is not so that everyone sounds like me or talks like me or Amaka or blows Funè. That's not it at all. What we're just trying to make sure is that as much as possible, you can meet your own business objectives, right? Whatever they may be, your own objectives, and achieve success. You know, there's a cliche, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. And this is really it. People can only make snap judgments, especially busy people. We find on average attention span now is something like 30 to 45 seconds. So if they're going to read something and they've got to find some criteria to select or to weed people out, unfortunately, typos or odd phrases will be a simple tool by which you can, move from 300 proposals to 5 or so on. And it sounds harsh, but that's the reality, and that's what we've found, okay? So we're just gonna look over a few critical areas that have to do with communication and professional writing. Right, so here we go. So what is professional writing? It's a style of writing that you're looking at how you are conveying your information in a clear, concise, and very specific way. And as I have already said, it's got to be quick and it's got to be effective. So what you're doing is you're either informing or persuading an audience in the world of work and commerce. And this might be whether you need to pass a test, complete an assignment, write an email to a coworker, colleague, competitor, potential client. So knowing how to say what you want to say in print is vital. Because as I've said, you're not always going to get the chance to do it in person. A lot of us are great in person, or in person, you can make a joke, you can deflect, you can distract with other mechanisms. In black and white, you're not going to get that opportunity. So you really want to persuade and or convey your information and ideas, right? You also want to make sure that you have a professional, objective, respectful, and formal tone, not necessarily conversational. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this. You want to know who your audience is. Are you talking to colleagues? Are you talking to employers? Are you talking to employees and your clients? Why that's important is because it's something called perspective. Are you speaking, and whether we like it or not, we all like to be very politically correct, but there are times when, are you speaking from a position of authority or are you speaking from a position of supplication? What's the power balance in this particular interaction? And those are things you can't get away from. We examples of correspondence or documentation that require professional writing: your reports, your resumes, your cover letters, grant applications, emails, presentations, proposals, okay? So what are the 9 rules? I've sort of come up with this as it comes up because you're going to need your quick look after I've finished everything. It's going to be like, okay, so what did she say? But the reason why, and it's actually in another training session where we talk about why do you say it at the beginning, what most people expect you to say at the end. It's because I want to tell you what the objective of today is. And at the end of today, I'm hoping that these 9 rules or these 9 takeaways will be what you do actually take away from this and you can use straight away. Okay. So the first is that I don't want you to be woolly. Don't be woolly. And we're going to talk about what that means. Always be instructional. Watch out for typographical errors. Make sure that you have what we call subject-verb agreement. Again, we're going to go into what these mean, but it's important that we just talk about them very quickly. Choose your voice. Are you choosing the active voice or the passive voice? And there are implications for which you choose. Don't assume gender. Now, this goes beyond he for she. You are now in a global world. First of all, there are no longer just 2 genders. So this is important, right? And it may sound like, oh, what's she saying? But this is a global world. And I want you to be able to show your A game wherever you are. So don't assume gender, especially when it's not germane or relevant to the conversation. Don't contract names unless you are invited to. Read the room. And finally, always read your work aloud. Okay? So now we're going to unpack these. Woolly ideas and thinking are unclear or have not been thought out or considered carefully enough, right? You don't want to be unclear and you don't want to be imprecise. There's actually a tendency now, a lot of people are working via voice notes, via video. And I find, and it's something that is an ongoing conversation I have with my 2 children who want to be YouTube stars all the time. And I say to them, it's fine if you want to be a YouTube star, but you've still got to get a script. And they think it's just because mama likes writing that she wants them to write. I promise you, it doesn't matter how good your idea is, how persuasive you can be. There is no idea that does not benefit from you taking the time to put it to paper or scribble it down or your notes app or whatever and refine your thoughts. This is so important because good writing is not about the number of words. It's not the quality of what's been written or the size of your font. It's really about the impact that you're making. You want your reader to understand you. You want to focus on expression over impression. So if you have sat down and you've thought it through, many times you're going to find that, unlike in speech where you would repeat yourself or you would stumble, if you've taken the time to plan it out, think, then write, you'll connect the thoughts together in an organic way and it will become persuasive. Because at the end of the day, you want people to do something from your writing. No one is just writing for writing's sake. A novelist or a fiction writer wants to harness emotion, wants to convey some form of knowledge. A biographer or a non-fiction writer wants to give you some information. Necessarily, it will be from an opinion point of view, but still, they want to convey some information. A journalist, opinion writer, so on and so forth. A marketer wants you to buy whatever they are selling. So you don't want to be vague. You don't want to be confused. You want to be precise. Okay? Which leads me to the next thing. If you sit down and plan what you're writing, the first thing you're going to say is, what is my call to action? People who read this, what do I want them to take away from it? Okay? Write exactly what you need to write. Try to keep one topic to each paragraph. Okay? Why is that critical? It's because you want, at the end of the day, people to say, now that I've listened to Tolagbe talking about this, I know that I can go away and apply this in my day-to-day living, right? So when I put these together, I thought I want the A-game cohort to take away specific tools that they can apply tomorrow to their professional lives, right? So how do I do that? And let me show you an example of how being instructional and being specific and precise helps. Writing is important to improve your English. My friend loves writing. He also reads and teaches little children. Writing can help you become a better speaker of English too. Now, if you are just writing off the cuff or speaking off the cuff, that's probably what would happen because you know why writing is important. You know it's good for English, but you haven't sat down to order your thoughts, and therefore there's nothing anyone can take away from it. So look at the next one. Practicing your writing skills will improve all your English language skills. I know that because my friend who teaches little children told me so. So that's actually what happens when you sit down and gather your thoughts versus think that you can just speak off the cuff. Even people who are natural orators, public speakers, people who can speak off the cuff, And Amaka can probably testify to this, because we can do it, people ask us to do it, but we all know that we would actually be better if we had been allowed some time to prep. So I can do a passable job, a good job, but I would do a much better job if I had the time to practice and prepare, so that I was as instructional and as specific as possible. Typos. Now, typos are, there's so many schools of thoughts on typographical errors, and there are some that everyone knows you can let pass. But again, it will depend on the context. If those people who remember Blackberries, there used to be a thing that you would say, send from my Blackberry, please ignore any typos. Send from my iPhone, please ignore typos. So in modern quick communication, typos can be forgiven and overlooked. But under the circumstances that I've already outlined, which is when you're trying to make a sale, you're trying to stand out, you're trying to differentiate yourself, typos have no place in such an arena. So capitalization is critical. You need to write Sunday with a capital S and not Sunday. And, you just need to do that. Back here, sorry. I will go to the mall on Monday. Do you want to come? No, because Monday has a capital M, and then you put a full stop, and then you start the next sentence with a capital D. And I know this is old-fashioned, I know, but I promise you, in formality, it is actually better to err on the side of being too formal and too correct in the first place than to be too casual. It's the way we say it's better to be overdressed than underdressed. It's just one of those things that you make a better impression if you err on the side of too much than too little. It's better to be over-prepared. It's better to be, sorry about that. Yeah, okay. So you don't need to know everything about grammar. And like I said, and this is why I pointed out to you that the objective of this is not to make you Tolagbe, the grammar minister, not at all. The objective is for you to recognize that grammar, punctuation, they are tools that you can utilize to actually achieve your own specific objectives. We didn't take the time to introduce ourselves so that I could know what any of you do, but the reality is, in your day-to-day lives, and the fact that you're motivated enough to be signing up for something like this in the first place means that it's important to you to give a good impression, and as we say, to make sure that you are giving your A game. So while you don't need to know every single thing, commas and periods or full stops are very, very important. Periods can be tricky, but they're not really, because you just put them at the end of a sentence. But commas can be a little trickier. When do you have to use them? Should I put one somewhere? But the reality is, without commas, you would run out of breath if you were reading something with commas. It's one of the reasons why sometimes people read and they're struggling, because there aren't enough commas. Commas are actually where you take a natural breath. So if you read your work aloud and you see where there are natural pauses, or perhaps where there's one thought and then you're moving on to another thought, you put a comma so that the reader knows to pause, okay? So first I went shopping, then I was getting tired, so I decided to go home. It was an adventure. Wow. As opposed to first, I went shopping, full stop. Then when I was getting tired, so I decided to go home. It was an adventure, exclamation mark. This is a natural way of telling a story, of taking your reader along with you on the journey. And it's not just a sales journey, it's any journey. It's not just for fiction, it's for whatever, because as we've said, you have an objective for writing. You know what you're trying to communicate. So punctuation helps you. It's like signposts. Come along with me. Turn left by this bus stop. then climb up these stairs. And that's what punctuation actually does. It guides the reader along with you so that they stay connected to what you have written and they follow you to where you're trying to get to. Subject-verb agreement. To be honest with you, I could do a whole seminar just on this topic because it's something that I see people struggle with. But it's a rule that says that the subject and the verb of an agreement have to agree. They have to be in the same person and they have to be the same number. So when we say person, we're referring to first person and third person, right? I or him or her or them. Okay. So let's go through this first sentence. The price of books are on the rise. I've given you the answers already, but the reason why this is wrong is because you're referring to the price, not to the books, okay? So it's the price of books is on the rise, okay? Because it's the price, not the books, yeah? Mary goes to school every day. Mary is the subject. Because she is singular, you have to use goes. If it was Mary and Amaka go to school, then you would say go to school because there's two people. And this is these versus this, who versus whom, few, a few, little, a little, and less. And as I said, honestly, we could do 2 hours on this. That's just how much there is. And that's not the objective, okay? I just want us to go over the rules together and know that you have to make sure that you identify the subject and you make sure that the verb matches them. So the price of books is on the rise because it's the price of books. The cost of diesel is on the rise because it's the cost of diesel. Right? I hope that's clear.
Yes, it is.
Fantastic. Now, we have to watch out for homonyms. Homonyms are words that sound or are spelled identically but have different meanings. And we've done some sentences, a sentence here with very confusing ones. I see you knew that serial killer too. Can you see that the first sentence makes no sense at all in writing? But if I said it on the phone or if you heard me say it, it would make sense, right? And this is a good example of why getting your spelling right in writing is different, because I see you knew that serial killer too. And while some grammar apps, like even inbuilt ones in Microsoft Word, Grammarly, etc., have gotten much better about picking these up, these are still things you need to watch out for personally, because some of these can actually still slip through the cracks. Don't use words that you don't know the meaning of. Don't use words that you've heard someone else using without taking the time to go and do the research,
Does that
checking
include
them.
buzzwords, Tolagbe? Buzzwords?
Especially buzzwords, especially Gen Z buzzwords. I beg you, millennials and Gen X, don't disgrace yourself. Please go and find out what these things mean before you say. So you want to say no cap, go and check the meaning. You want to hear it choke, please go and check the meaning. So this shouldn't just be words, it should also be phrases and expressions, yes. For example, regardless of whether you like it or not, the book entitled Alice in Wonderland is a classic. So you might think I've used big English, I've said entitled, but entitled does not mean having the title. It means believing you have a right to something. And regardless is not a word we like to use, to be honest. We use it a lot in speech, but it's not really a correct word. So instead, you would say, whether you like it or not, the book titled Alice in Wonderland is a classic. And this is what we mean by making sure that phrases that you hear, just because they're popular or they've been, well used, you still need to check. Especially because, as Amaka has pointed out, there's a lot of slang out there. It might not be appropriate for your audience. It might not convey exactly what you are trying to get across. which leads me to the active and passive voice. And this is, there's a lot more to this than people talk about. The active voice is in which we center the action or the doer. And in the passive voice, we behave as if something has happened to the person, okay? And the active and the passive voice has actually become quite political because, and I'll give you an example of that. In the US, where, you know, we know that the police force have a history of mistreating Black people, when the news is being reported, it is often reported as if, you know, they'll say somebody died due to a police-led action. Oh, did a policeman shoot him? Yes, a policeman shot him. But if I put policeman kills innocent bystander, that has a real impact on it. So people will often use the passive voice to downplay the impact of what has happened. Okay. And so depending on your objective, you choose the right voice for that. So, hi, John. The book I was told about by you has been found by me. That sounds really weird, doesn't it? But if I say the offering price was established by the real estate vendor and the negotiation price was initiated by the real estate buyer. Now that second sentence probably comes across a little more organic because lawyers often do this.
What does that mean?
No, I need a drink.
Let me clear my throat.
So that's the point, right? That there are obviously much more natural ways to say the same thing. The real estate vendor set the offering price, the real estate buyer started the negotiation. But depending on the objective, you might choose to use the passive voice. But if you are talking to John, you'd say, hi, John, I found the book you told me about. So this leads us very well, I hope, and if it doesn't, I'll come back to it. It doesn't, but the issue of knowing your audience and tailoring your syntax or word order to match the audience. There are formal report writing in particular. You may have to use the passive voice in a report, especially maybe if you are reporting something that has nothing to do with you, maybe but it's going to implicate somebody. You write it in the passive voice. So it's not Tolagbe said, it is the offering price was found, it was established that the door was left open, and you know, who, so that the person really cannot say who left the door open. But it doesn't have to be you that is being quoted. So this is what's important about the active voice and the passive voice. Real talk. You'll use the passive voice sometimes in order to avoid being quoted. You use the passive voice in order to avoid being coming across as confrontational. You use the active voice in a safe space. And I'm veering off because I know that this is real talk, right? This is how grammar can help you and how grammar can save you sometimes. Passive voice puts a barrier between what is being discussed and the writer. And there are times, especially in the workplace, where you need that. You need to either express some form of non-liability or make sure that you show that you didn't have anything to do with the proceedings. You are just a bystander who is reporting on the situation. So this is very helpful for that. Passive voice, when it's like, please, oh, I'm not there. Oh.
Very, very, very.
This is what happened. They said this happened to this person. That's why I said lawyers are very good at it.
So for like escalation reports, I'm just thinking this definitely active voice, passive voice will be better for an escalation incident reporting.
Absolutely. Real talk.
Never thought about it. No, this is the first time I'm seeing it.
Because I think, but you know, by your training, I think you do it by default. So you probably
by default, yes.
Yeah. So you know the import as a lawyer, but non-lawyers will not recognize that that's actually why lawyers use the passive voice so much. It's because it's a way of presenting the facts without assigning undue responsibility to anyone.
Perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please don't assume gender for any number of reasons, right? If you say faculty and their wives, that's very rude because you're assuming that none of the faculty members could possibly have husbands, right? And if you say faculty and wives, the truth is, in this day and age, it's not even defaulting to male faculty anymore. It's just making an assumption that you don't need to make, right? So faculty and guests, faculty and spouses. There's nothing wrong with spouse. Spouse is gender neutral and covers anybody. And nobody should really be offended by that. Now, but leads me to the next point, which is, again, you can't assume that everybody is married. So you will also open up for you and your guest, or you and your partner, you and your guest. You and your guest is safest because then whether the guest is husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, man friend, anyone, it's not your business. You and your guest are cordially invited. Because sometimes, and in my case, sometimes I go out with my brother because he will often sometimes be my escort. Maybe because my husband doesn't want to go or he's out of town, so on and so forth. He's my guest, he's my plus one, and he should be provided with the same courtesies as a result, right? You don't need to say boyfriends or girlfriends. You can say friends, guests, partners. Again, this is just, we're moving into a world in which we shouldn't be boxing people into any specific, or one, boxing people into specific conventions, and two, making people who are not existing in those conventions feel some type of way or feel excluded, right? So part of operating at your A game is actually being as inclusive as possible. And I know that a lot of us are also gearing towards an international audience, possibly, jack buying or moving. And these are the sensitivities that people may not.
You say jack buying.
Yes. These are the sensitivities that I don't think we are as aware of in this environment, but they are the things that will very quickly either endear you to a new environment or make it obvious that you don't fit in such a space. Again, something like a nurse cares for her patients. You've made a big assumption that all nurses are women, and they aren't. There are a significant number of male nurses, and it changes nothing in your sentence to say nurses care for their patients, and that way you've covered everyone and really at no significant cost to yourself. So as much as possible, you want to avoid gender biased pronouns where possible. Each student should hand in his thesis by, why? When you can say students should hand in their thesis by, so you've actually covered everyone in that. Don't contract names. Shortened names are often intimate. And for any number of reasons, people may not like having their names shortened. Who says Elizabeth wants to be called Liz? Maybe her JS2 bully used to call her Liz the Lizard. Maybe you think Elizabeth is too formal, but that's not for you to decide. So don't see Adewale and say Wale. Don't see Elizabeth and say Liz until you are invited. And in many cases, you will be invited. You'll be told, it's okay, you can call me X, but you have to wait for that invitation. You don't say, please, it's too long, can I call you? Don't do that either, right? Try and practice. It's actually such a sign of respect if you can practice and get someone's name right. Read the room. Learn the culture. Who are you writing for? Who do you expect to read your article, your book, or your blog post? Will they care about what you're talking about? Will they understand the message that you're trying to get across? Good writing isn't generic, it's specific because it's targeted towards a group of people with something common binding them. Always read your work aloud. When you finish writing, it pays to revise your work and look for spelling, grammar, and vocabulary errors. check if your sentences are too long, what we call a run-on sentence. If you could benefit from splitting it into 2 or 3, taking advantage of some punctuation, whether it's a full stop, period, a colon, a dash, exclamation mark. When you read it aloud, you'll see where the natural intonations are and whether there's any ambiguity in the text that could easily be resolved. Look for false friends, homonyms, and any other words you might have used incorrectly. And take a break and give a final read before printing, sending, handing in your work. So here is an example of what a sentence might look like before proofreading. In conclusion, there are 3 ways to fry an egg. Whereas if you take out the mistakes, you say, in conclusion, there are 3 ways to fry an egg. Arka, do we have time for an exercise? Do people want to do an exercise, or is this something that they just want to go try
Yes,
by
we do have
themselves?
time for an exercise. We do. We do.
Okay. So you are your own company. We're going to do exercise 2. You are your own company. What words describe you? You don't need to design a logo, but I'd like you to use your own descriptive words in a way that gets attention, and then you can share and compare with all of us.
Can we all just type, how many words are we allowed? 3? Or how many?
Probably, yeah. 3 is a good number.
Three is good. Okay, could everybody just in 3 words? I like these kind of exercises because I tell you, the more concise, the harder it is. How do you sum yourself up in 3 words? But could everyone please type 3 words? I think, sorry, Tolagbe, I was asking, I think my network is slightly shaky. Do we describe ourselves or the business in 3 words? Which
I
is
want
it?
you to describe yourselves. You are your own company now. So
Okay,
there's
okay, let me have a go. Oh gosh, this is hard. um Innovative.
Mhm.
Okay, which company am I talking about now? I
No,
think that's the first. Okay, okay,
no,
let me
you are your own company.
okay,
You.
I am my own company.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. If I'm describing myself in 3 words, myself, develop your A game, I would say dynamic,
Mhm.
um curious, and this I can never spell this. I can never pronounce this well. Empathetic,
Yeah.
empath.
One, because it's 2 different words.
Oh, is it? Oh, there you go. Okay, so dynamic, curious, and empathetic. That's how I would describe myself. Yes, thank you. Dynamic, curious, and empathetic. Yeah.
Yeah, who's going next? I would
Who's
really like
going
to hear.
next? I've started, oh, guys. I've started. Let everybody, let's get stuck in. Ayomide, Elizabeth, Elijah, Ifoma, Twale. Write your 3 descriptions of yourself, or unmute and describe yourself.
I would prefer if I got to hear people's voices, to be honest with you.
That's true. Okay, unmute and describe. Who's gonna go
Um,
first?
let me try.
Go on, Ifoma.
Oh, okay. I would say creative,
Oh,
adventurous,
oh,
fun.
I like those ones. Okay, okay. Ayomide, creative, adventurous, and fun. Twale,
I was just thinking about it actually. I would say focused,
mm,
um, a little bit crazy. Can I use crazy?
You can.
Last one, I know, like, I have 3 options. I'm trying to weigh up the one, but I'll say determined. Oh, determined, but I'm not sure. Like, okay.
Those are good. Ayomide, Elijah, Elizabeth, over to you.
Sorry, there's a little bit of noise in my background. This is
It's fine.
Amide. I would say detailed, positive, and solution oriented.
Nice. Nice.
Sorry. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hello?
Hi.
Oh, network.
We can hear you. Talk.
Oh, sorry. My network. Okay, I will describe myself as creative, also adventurous, and focus.
Nice. Nice.
Hi, good evening.
Hello, Elizabeth.
I would describe myself as purpose-driven, creative, and a workaholic.
Oh, okay. I love that. I love the honesty.
Missed it. Workaholic what?
I heard, Elizabeth, can you take it again? Workaholic was what I heard.
Focus-driven,
Focus
creative,
driven.
and workaholic.
And see, I can't hear the third one. Workaholic, purpose driven, and what?
Creative.
Creative. Okay.
Okay. Everybody is creative. Now, wow.
Do you know what? I don't know why that word skipped my mind. So I guess I'm not as creative as I think I am.
Did we get everyone?
Yeah, we did actually. Yeah, we did.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. And with that, I've come to the end of my conversation.
Nice.
Anyone have
Nice.
any questions, please? Or was there anything that we discussed that you'd like me to expand on or go into since we have a little bit of time?
Does anyone have any questions around? I mean, there's a couple of things. Passive voice, active voice, definitely. I never really thought about it like you said because I'm trained that way. I guess I took it for granted. But it makes a lot of sense now. The way we write, report writing especially, in that passive voice, so you can distance yourself from what happened, so there's no liability. So that was quite eye-opening for me. One thing I want to ask, maybe I'm asking on behalf of everyone, but I do want people to ask questions because I know a few of us in this room, in this cohort, are, I would say, in the mid stages of their careers. So you're looking for the next level up, And many people would say, oh, when you're writing a CV, how this is one question that I always, how real are you supposed to be? What voice are you supposed to use? Because you spoke about know your audience, get a sense of who you're writing to. And yes, we're living in this woke society where we're supposed to be keeping it real. But then again, I'm not trying to turn this into a recruitment session because it isn't. But when we're writing about ourselves, when we're trying to showcase ourselves, our skills and all that, how is there a certain voice? I mean, are we supposed to just be very, instructional sounding? And
So
I
for
don't know
that,
if you're getting the
you have to
pattern.
use the active voice, especially like for your professional summary, right? Because that stuff didn't happen to you. You happened to it, right? And you made it happen. So you have, I'd say, first of all, you have to strike a balance, okay? Especially if as you said, you're mid-career. So you're going to use a lot of I supported, because you're not leading the teams yet, right? So you're working teams. So you have to use a lot of the verbs that speak to that. So you contributed, you delivered, right? You supported, you played a role in. Because you can't be saying your first job out of uni and say you led this or you sold this. You didn't do anything.
People do though. It's
maybe
crazy.
Photocopying, or maybe like you corrected some slides. So making sure that you can convey somewhat accurately what your level of contribution would be. So in a resume or a CV, you want to escalate that voice so it gets more active the more senior you become, right? Because that's a way of conveying reality.
Yes.
In your first job, unless you were very lucky, you probably, or either, unless you were very lucky or you worked in a startup, or, you worked in your father's business, like steps that you could not ordinarily have taken in an entry level role. So you need to tailor the language to suit that your seniority over time, so that the more senior you get, the more responsibility you're taking on, and so possibly the more active the voice is becoming, over time. But your professional summary should be quite active in its tone, and there should be a lot of who you are, a little descriptive words backed up by you're gonna make an assertion and you're going to back it up with an argument or evidence of the same thing. So I'm very results driven, and we can actually do this way. So somebody who is detailed, positive, and solution oriented should be using those in her professional summary and giving examples of how she's been detailed, when she's been positive, and what kind of solutions she's come up with. Okay. So Twale, who said he was crazy, this might be the challenge with using crazy in a more conventional workspace. Because
I was about to say,
not impossible. If you're going for advertising or sales or marketing, being crazy might be a good thing. Any other thing, you may want to reconsider the use of crazy. More conventional.
What about Elizabeth? She said she's a workaholic because she's in a safe space. So how would you flip that word, workaholic? I have to definitely flip the, because it's interesting, because I remember, and I'm going to share this with the group, I remember going for a job interview. I got into a job like early on in my career and I hated the job. I was like, oh my God, what am I doing here? So I went for an interview and they asked me, oh gosh, what are your weaknesses? And I literally used it to start telling sub stories. Like, I think they looked at me like, we don't want this girl, please. We don't. So I guess what I'm asking is, how can Elizabeth change that narrative of workaholic to something more positive? Because we all know this world we're living in, being burnt out is not cool anymore, so how do we change that and make it sound really cool?
First of all, she needs to stop being a workaholic.
Elizabeth, hope you're listening.
Second, you just talk about how you have a good work ethic, so you're responsible, right? You feel a responsibility to complete your tasks and to meet your established objectives. So you can say strong work ethic and strong sense of responsibility. Workaholics belong in the 80s and at best, the early 2000s. Everybody knows now that, especially post-pandemic, we cannot live to work. We have to work to live. So work has to just be one aspect of a full life. If you're lucky, and you've got something you enjoy, which I guess she's argued by saying that purpose driven. That being said, the purpose should align with other P's like peace and progress and prosperity. So you want to make sure that as much as possible, you are putting your health, your wellness as a priority also. And definitely as you get more senior in your career, those are also things that you can make quite clear that, a reasonable balance is somewhat important to you. And any responsible employer now should also consider that to be a major issue. So, like I said, do we have any other questions?
Do we have any other questions? Impact, communications, was everything communicated clearly enough? Maybe that's why they're not saying anything, because the objective has been met. I mean, if we don't have any other questions at this point, I can use this opportunity to just say a very big thank you. It was very enlightening, looking way beyond just the language. We're looking at how little words put in the wrong place, misspellings, the kind of perception that it can convey, the impression that it can make, even the words we use to describe ourselves. This is something that even I have personally been trying to work on. I need to use positive words to reinforce who I am, not words that are vague or ambiguous or have some kind of negative meaning. Yeah, woolly, yes, woolly ideas. We don't want woolly ideas or unclear thinking. So, and also planning. I love how you focused on, not all of us are necessarily born orators, but with a little bit of planning, we can actually convey our messages more succinctly. And even public speakers, even the best public speakers, we had a session on that 3 weeks ago, and you definitely need to be a master of your field to be able to just deliver at off the cuff. So it's been really nice hearing you almost reinforce a lot of things that we have learned in some previous sessions. So it was really, really interesting.
I'm not, I wouldn't be surprised if some of these things hadn't come across, but I think it's nice for the A game cohorts to recognize that all these people can't be saying it, all these people can't be wrong. They can't all be wrong. So
Yeah.
there's some consistency in the messaging, then at least they know that these are the truths that people have taken away in the course of their professional lives.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Tolagbe. And it would be nice if you could drop your handle so they can follow you on Instagram, learn more about what you do, perhaps even book a one-on-one with you at some point, because like she said, there's so much more to communication than we can possibly go through in one short session. But I do hope that this session has been enjoyable, enlightening, and impactful. And I hope everyone's going to be taking away what they've learned. Ayomide, I know you lost network. If you have any questions, because we're about wrapping up, Elijah, if you have any final questions or comments, we're about wrapping up this session. Otherwise, if you have no further contributions, she's just dropped her IG handle, TM Grammar. Do follow her. She's witty, very, very witty, sarcastic, but I think sarcasm is a sign of wit anyway. So you can always expect a healthy dose of sarcasm.
Try not to be on TM Grammar. We actually try, because we're aware that people are coming from so many different backgrounds.
True.
Try not to do is
too much. Yes. Okay, that's more of your personal page. Sorry, I'm mixing up too.
We try on TM Grammar not to be shady or like sometimes when I come there, I'm shady, and then everybody else is like, please, can you go away? Because
okay. Ayomide says no questions. Elizabeth, she's posted the email that we can reach, that she can be reached at. Okay. Thank you so much for today's session. It's
Thank
been
you.
really great. Oh, sorry, Tolagbe, I missed that.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, absolutely. No, I'm so glad you made this. Like, so, so glad, really. Thank you so much. And take care, everyone. Till the next session, our final closeout session on week 6. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.